the results of those evaluations, like the quality of the responses increased in about 60%. They've already onboarded more than 1,000 employees in 1 year. So the data is pretty impressive. We did it with Oculus Go. And yes, it's all about content design and making the best use of the headset.
Mm,
For sure. Yeah.
that's awesome. Um, Robin, I know this is, you have a pretty focused thing going on. It's probably outside your focus, but have you ever had people ask if they could have an audience or a crowd while they practice to kind of have some exposure to that?
Yes, I've actually spoken to a piano player who he's not professional, but he teaches and he wants to perform, but has crushing social anxiety to the point where he has nightmares about being in front of crowds. And having a fake VR crowd in a physical space, having that immersive experience, but being in front of a 3D crowd, I think would probably help with that. Like you were saying about immersion therapy, that would definitely, I think, at least be an interesting experiment to see if that would help.
Sure. I'm in my hobby is I play guitar and make electronic music, and I'm about ready to start performing. And if I could just every time I was practicing be in front of a bunch of people, I would love that. It would make me feel so much more comfortable. I also
then sorry, go on.
I was also no, it's okay. I was also listening to an interview with Gary Kasparov recently, the chess grandmaster, the Russian chess champion, and he would say, there's all these people, they practice chess on the computer now, and he says don't do that, because he says basically sitting in your chair, having your hand on the chessboard is part of the development of that memory, and maybe you could say being with the audience or without the audience has a similar kind of context cue.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm definitely going to use that when I'm next explaining to somebody why it's useful. If Gary Kasparov says it, it must be true.
Yeah, that guy knows everything.
I think for all of you who are doing training and education and anything, there is another group here, and that is called Educators in VR. They are quite active, and they're doing especially meetings about how to teach people in VR and stuff like that. So maybe you can check that out. It's really useful, very interesting.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, and by the way, if anyone wants to share links or resources afterwards, spatialape.com is a good place to do that. You can just make a post and people will react to it.
Robin, where is your application available to the public?
It's available on SideQuest.
SideQuestVR.com. I think I tried it yesterday. Is it? I just tried it for a little bit. You can try to learn piano by using without the controls, right?
Yes, it's
just
got
with your
hand
hands.
tracking. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's very interesting how you configure the hand tracking. I found it very interesting. I'm gonna try it with more detail later today. Looks awesome.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, let me know what you think. I'm really interested to hear feedback. Thanks.
Sure, I just added you and I will try it and give you my feedback. Great.
Great, thanks.
Robin, I saw you responded to my post about the line on Spatial Ape, and it's a coincidence that you did so, because one of my favorite parts about it is the hand tracking, actually.
Yeah, I like that. I tried it earlier, actually.
Oh, did
before
you?
I joined this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I really like the art style. I like it's very cute. I think for some reason miniature things work really well in VR. It's something about having like tabletop miniatures, I think, that works incredibly well.
Yeah.
And it's very entertaining, very cute. I haven't finished it yet, but so far it's going really well.
Do you think AltSpace will implement hand tracking at some point?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so.
Me too. That'd be great, especially to see everybody's hand tracking live instead of.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of social cues that come from your hands that are really useful.
Yeah, I think they should release a headset without the controllers, because if you think about it, the controllers must contribute quite a large part of the cost of any headset. If you could sell one without controllers, and yes, it would only be useful for hand tracking, games, but it would cut the cost. So maybe you'd have a $250 headset instead of a $300 headset.
So this is totally unverified, but I have heard from someone with knowledge inside Facebook that the last year or so they've been working on essentially 2 headsets. One is the Quest 2 that we're all wearing, and the second one is an even higher resolution enterprise productivity version that's going to come without controllers.
Really? Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
Nice.
So if that never happens, don't ask me. And if it does happen, you know who told you.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, it would also be easier to have a happy hour with without people holding.
That's very true.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Definitely, yes. I'm sure
That's
it will
funny.
come. It's a natural because those.
Yeah, but you
The
have to have a
first thing-
straw. You have to have drink out of a straw.
Yeah.
That's true.
Unless you want to be doing this the whole time. Your character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Michael,
also
what's
think
in the
it's going to
pipeline for you
happen.
guys right now?
Excuse me?
Yeah. What features are you working on right now?
What features are working on? Well, I just added. Well, yeah. I think last time when I had a presentation, I talked about having challenges that work across different heights. It was the main reason why challenges weren't really implemented yet. That's now finished. So if someone creates a challenge, it can send it to other players, and other players can play the challenge too. And now it will adjust to the height of different players. So if you're playing with at 180, and you have someone 160, and all exercises will scale down or scale up depending on what your height was. So you can now have you can now create challenge. So we have a few players who actually joined so they can challenge each other. So probably also work groups or something, and they can now create a challenge and then have local high score lists where they can, let's say someone wants to make a challenge and who decides the next movie night or something, and then they can play those and have a high score list, and the best player, can win.
Awesome.
I mean, so, but
That's great.
really the step that was necessary to have this multiplayer experience, and in the future it will also be required for those online battles where you're playing one-on-one, so that when the game creates exercises that they are actually fair across every player, and not one is too high and one is too low.
That's awesome. This is probably a totally crazy idea, but I was thinking for your app and also for Robin's app, the ultimate marketing thing for a skills learning app would be to somehow get in Guinness World Records, like most push-ups done in VR, or I don't know what the equivalent would be for you, Robin.
Well,
I think it's actually very easy. It's very easy to get in the Guinness World Book of Records. Basically, you pay them 50 grand or whatever it is, and
Really?
they'll give you a spot for whatever it is. Yeah, they'll send the people out. You do 50 push-ups, and they'll give you a certificate, and you get in the book. It's not cheap, though.
50 grand. That's cheap.
That's a big
My,
marketing
No,
budget.
but your Fit just released a tweet today that they actually have now added VR workouts to their list, and they seem to have had this huge squat challenge because they have the squat counter running in the background, and they seem to think that it was a real good squatting game, which actually it isn't, because it's much more, or at least squatting isn't really the main exercise you do, but it seems that squatting is currently the main metric they're using for every game. The more squats, the better, and it seems to be quite high in the ranking.
Awesome.
What is the
Hey
main
Daniel,
exercise
welcome.
you do?
Hey.
In VR workout, I would say the main exercise is either the crunches or the push-ups, because that's the thing that you don't have in
Yeah.
any other. So that's that's also the thing that I have on my side quest image in the search listing is the side plank, which is, I think that's probably the main move that makes it recognizable.
Yeah, that one works quite well.
This is Daniel, Puzzling Places. So Daniel, I'm gonna hop out, get the live stream going on the website,
Sounds
get
good.
some water real quick, and then we'll ask you some questions. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Great.
Good luck with the
Hey,
screen
Daniel.
with the stream. Hey.
Yeah, hopefully if it gets up, the website up here should reflect it. We should have a stream of the meetup in the meetup, but we'll see if that works.
All right, are you using the new Oculus streaming feature?
We're actually not. We're just using we're using OBS, and I have a Vive, so that makes it a little easier. But it's
Has anybody
honest.
tried the?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
That's okay.
I was just going to ask if anyone's tried the new casting feature, the new browser casting for Oculus.
Nope, not
Yeah,
yet.
me neither.
Yeah,
I'm curious whether it's the latency is good or not.
I can't imagine it's too good. Oh, there we go. Look, it's up. I can't imagine it's great. The typically, I mean, I guess Twitch has anywhere from like a 7 to a 20-second delay, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be something.
Well, I guess for streaming, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
For streaming, it's not that bad, right? Like, I mean, usually people that like watch the stream, they don't have like a more real time thing.
That's fair.
So.
But I think Robin, you had mentioned last time that it's actually like a local network thing. It's just between, at least for you.
Oh, really? No, I don't think that was me, but that sounds good.
Huh. Yeah. I could imagine that they would well, it's so hard to manage the concurrent delay within these things. I'm pretty impressed with the multiplayer chat in AltSpace, just sort of as a core. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, given like how we're still struggling with video calls sometimes, that any like VR multiplayer works.
Yeah,
it's always like a miracle to me. And then if you see things like, you know, Normcore and these kind of like network stacks, like it's pretty impressive.
I was going to ask, has anybody tried to implement Normcore? Hey, welcome.
Hey, I'm using Normcore.
Are you? Cool. How do you like it?
It works for hand tracking as well. So you can stream hand tracking. I find it incredibly simple to set up. So yeah, I'd recommend it. And they've got a very competitive free tier, so you can do a lot before you have to pay.
That's nice. That's how they get you. It's a good strategy for VR right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take off, but thank y'all for doing this. I'll probably try to check it out from time to time.
Oh,
yeah, nice to meet you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, y'all take care.
Thanks for coming. You too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Robin, what is Normcore?
It's a multiplayer stack for. It's got a Unity plugin, but I think you can use it with pretty much any platform. You just for Unity, you just have to drop in a few files, and it took me probably only a couple of hours to get a multiplayer room set up, and then you can connect to it with multiple clients, and it transmits all of the hand positions and all of the head positions, and it also has built-in voice chat.
Or is it a WebSocket server with some extra fancy management stuff?
Sorry, say again?
Is it a WebSocket server with some fancy management stuff around it that automates all the thing you would have to implement by hand?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like a library, I guess. Just a load of code that you don't have to write yourself. I mean, it probably would be faster if you did it yourself, but I'm not that good a programmer, so I rely on that kind of thing.
I'm the same.
What's the name devil's in the detail?
Yeah, Normcore.
Okay.
Normcore.io, I think it is.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, this is something.
They're the first ones there, like kind of specialized also for VR, right? I mean, they made their like nice little VR demo, the little game, which is actually pretty nicely designed.
Yeah, their keyboard was amazing. Have you guys seen their little keyboard? I actually am able to control this browser, so I can pull this up.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, but they made this. Actually, let me see if I can find it. It's like you just add this component, right? Which is just amazing that you just add a few little components to things you want to replicate, and then it just works. I was gonna say, let me see if I can find their keyboard. It was such a beautiful little preview, and it came out years ago, and it's still one of the best VR keyboards I've ever used. Oh, here it is. But it was just sort of like a community building project that they did to just sort of like, I think, gain some goodwill. Let's see if I can get this to load. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so it was giant. Well, it's variable size. I know.
Wow.
So cute. But they give you these little like drumsticks almost, and just the offset from your fingers or from your hands makes it like double usable. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive. So I guess this is some inspiration that they had, and then they put it together, and you can just download the Unity project.
Oh,
I can see the
that's
link, but I
interesting.
don't.
It looks great.
Yeah, it's a great little keyboard. This browser's pretty interesting. Does anybody have anything they'd like to pull up? Any projects they'd like to show off?
Well, I don't see anything in the browser. I only see the link.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, really? It's working for me.
Yeah, I think I clicked on. It shows me how to stream something myself, and I don't know how to get it away.
Yeah, that should not be like that. Do you have a little eyeball button?
Yeah, I have an eyeball which says show content.
Yeah,
and
try
if I
that.
click it, I have a green.
The green.
Spatial Ape webpage. And if I click show content, then I see only this 4-step thing where you have to install an extension and log into Allspace. And
yeah. The green thing is a bug. I mean, I don't know. It's basically like it's the shader before anything's been projected to it. So your shader isn't updating for whatever reason. But
the problem is that I clicked on it to stream something myself, and I can't get that thing away.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I've submitted a
Justin,
few
did
bug
anything
reports.
come out of the conversations with Shane from SideQuest?
Well, he said he's coming back. I talked to him today. He said he's coming back this week, which would be
cool.
awesome. I've just been kind of toying with it in my head about how exactly to go about that. There's so many good options. And do you have ideas?
Yeah. Not any ideas specifically. I just think it's a good thing to try and merge the two worlds. There's a lot of crossover,
Definitely.
and it makes sense to have a more sort of just advertise it in SideQuest as well, so that more of those guys come in as well.
Totally. I was thinking maybe we could give SideQuest one of these booths and use mixed reality extension to be able to look at anyone on their platform, which would be cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, should we have a little chat?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right, let's head to your booth. Cool. Willie, we good? You want to let us know?
Yeah, we're good. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Well, Daniel, thanks so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
We're happy to meet you and get introduced to what you're doing. Do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got on this journey to build this project?
Sure. Well, I've been around in the VR space for a while. I actually started out as a cognitive scientist doing research in virtual reality or with virtual reality as a tool, researching human navigational behavior back in the days when headsets were $30,000. Like that was before the Rift and everything. So that was fun. And then Oculus happened and the Kickstarter happened and things moved in that direction. And then suddenly I ended up in industry, because people were searching for someone who had a slight idea of what this VR thing is about when VR hit. So that's kind of how I started out, and then I worked at a few different places before in 2016, starting Realities with my co-founder David Finsterwalder. And we started Realities with the idea of bringing the real world into the virtual world. So that was always our goal, our the vision that we had from the start. David was working with photogrammetry and archaeology, and they got into contact with that and then started bringing that in VR, and that was pretty fascinated by how cool that looked. how you could get like these super photorealistic graphics. And so we started the company in 2016. We're super lucky to get into Boost VC, like an accelerator program in San Mateo in the Bay Area. And that got us like started, and we worked on our pipeline, on the technology, as well as creating some applications. You might know Reality is on Steam, which is free, so you can download it. That is like this one-to-one photogrammetry exploration kind of stuff. And then worked on several other projects, like a lot of like Oculus for Good projects. Worked with Nani de la Peña. But also with like Facebook and some like industry clients like Audi on a bunch of projects. And somewhere along the way, while we were working on our pipeline and we were like, working on all these big meshes and getting them into Engine, we had this one mesh that we imported, and it was imported all jumbled up. So usually we cut things into pieces, and like this mesh like got all jumbled up. And then our graphics programmer, Sharia, he was like, we should just ship it like that and let people like puzzle it together. And we had like this moment of silence. We're like, shit, this is like a pretty good idea. Like, this sounds like a really interesting thing to do. And so we like the whole idea was born out of a joke. And so we started like building a few prototypes here and there. Never really had time to really pursue it. And then COVID happened, and we got locked down in the beginning of this year, and couldn't do some of our projects that were postponed. And so what happened is we sat down for 5 weeks and jammed Puzzling Places, and brought it on SideQuest, and just like we're curious like how things go. And people really liked it. We got really great feedback. And so we decided to continue working on it. So for those of you who don't know, like Puzzling Places is a 3D VR puzzle game, like a jigsaw puzzle game, where you take real world places like this one here, which is a castle in Japan, and you just puzzle them together.
That's really cool. That's actually a really good idea.
That is an awesome founding story. That's so great to hear. So one of the things I wanted to really dig into is this unique art style and approach. I don't know, we may not have quite done this justice in importing it into our world.
I mean, we reduced it to like a very simplified thing. We didn't want to crash the Altspace room, because I know some people are running on Quest here, so like this one is like a very scaled down model.
We appreciate that, because I mean, let me tell you, I was in this for about an hour earlier today, and for everyone else who hasn't played, I mean, the assets really in game are stunning. They're incredible. And there's a few apps that I've tried that have given me this kind of train of thought, but yours especially, which is when I'm in the Quest 2 playing that game, it's almost like, the resolution is almost as good as you could want it to be. And when I sit there and play with one of your assets and see these photorealistic, I think I did a European castle reconstruction was the one I did. And it's like, wow, why does every game not look this good? It looks so much better than a lot of other apps. And so it just makes me think we're getting to the point almost where the headset is good enough, and the approach you take to building the software is now so important. And I think you guys have done a good job in picking an approach that works really well. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we were kind of like pulling a trick, right? Because what we're using is like, these are photogrammetry assets. So like all the things that you see back there, this model, actually, we didn't even scan ourselves. Like, we just pulled it from Sketchfab, where there's like a ton of really cool models. So these are all real world places that have been like, people shoot like a lot of photographs with a drone for this one, I guess. And then you run it through a software stack that takes the photos and reconstructs a 3D model from the photos. So you don't even need like a LiDAR scanner or anything to make these kind of scans. And the crazy thing is, like, you can get like incredibly high detail. The tricky thing is then to take the mesh that you get and turn it into something that can run in real time, because like what comes out of like the usual photogrammetry software has, like a bunch of like a couple of million polys. And like is not even running real time on like a 3090 or something. So that's actually one of the things that we've been working on. We've made like this whole pipeline to take these kind of like heavy assets and optimize them in a way that is like very fine-tuned to photogrammetry and to bringing things into real-time VR. So once you have that set up, the cool thing is the lighting in this is made with the best lighting engine we know, which is the real world, because it, like, you know, doesn't just bounce like a few rays or like a few photons, but like bounces all the photons, and you get this insanely fine-grained detail. Like if you're curious, like, you check out Realities on Steam. It's also for free. Like, where there's a few, you know, we scanned the Cologne Cathedral, for example, where you get these insanely high detail meshes, and the trick that really sells it is not only the mesh detail, but especially the shading of this like really detailed lighting. And the cool thing is, because the lighting is all baked in, you don't have to calculate it at runtime. And so that's what makes it run even on a Quest. Like, once we figured out how to get the polys to like a good amount, and like getting all that set up, creating LODs, blah blah blah, you can get this really photorealistic look even on a Quest headset if you drop the lighting. And I mean, that's also what like a lot of like the high-end games do, like Vader Immortal or something. Like, they bake a lot of the lighting. I mean, they take these synthetic scenes and they just like bake it in an engine offline and then bake the lighting in, so it's pretty much the same thing.
That's awesome. I mean, I noticed we've been talking about this inside of our team. We're getting to the point where the resolution of these displays is increasing faster than the GPU power of the chips. And so when you have something like that, if you really want to take full advantage of it, you do need to be capturing from natural environments. And I think that's where this really shines. So you said this one is from Sketchfab. What about the rest? How have you gone through the process of creating these environments?
It's half. So I mean, the monastery that you puzzled from Armenia, that one was scanned by us, by our director for the Gravity, Azad, and David, our CTO. That's the one in the middle back there. This one is by Miguel Banderas. He's an amazing photogrammetry artist who scans a lot of stuff all over the world. I think the ones over there were actually scanned by our graphics programmer, Shahria Sharabi. And this one is like also from Sketchfab, from a museum that scanned it. So like, you can get these. There is a small community of like doing photogrammetry scanning. It's not huge, but there's people doing cool stuff, and we have stuff around. And the cool thing is, if we work for these kind of like mini models, the whole process of capturing is more manageable than when you do like, you know, scan an entire cathedral 1-to-1, so you can walk around in it, because you need way more detail. So for these kind of things, especially if we do outside, we just do a lot of drone scanning, where we have developed workflows that are semi-automated, to just like fly the drones in the pattern that we need.
That's awesome. And in that same vein, you know, a couple days ago, I was playing with, my dad has the new iPhone. And so I was playing with, you know, that new sensor. And I'm curious, do you see that being a big opportunity and a significant part of what you're doing, or is that still just a toy for now?
For us, it's a toy. You know, like, I think the best way to think about it is, we are with 3D scanning technology. I think we are at the moment, like the kind of 3D scanning photogrammetry that we do is kind of like analog photography. Like, you have to go out into the field, you take the photos, you don't know if it turns out right, you go back home, you develop them, or like you process them, and then you know if it worked out or it didn't. So you have that kind of like very hard learning curve that is really frustrating at times, because there's such a long delay between like what you do in the field and then until you see or like see if it worked out or not. And so these new sensors, new developments that give you real-time feedback, that is much more like digital photography, you know, that really changed the game. But for like a long time, these kind of like digital cameras, they were just like really crappy, right?
Sure.
So like analog photography was good. And I think that's kind of like the point where we're at. So like down the line, at some point, like these mobile scanning technologies are going to get way better. And I think then way more people will be able to use that kind of stuff. But yeah, at the moment, scanning and then also optimizing for real time is still like a little bit of a dark art. And I think it's going to stay like that for a little while. But yeah, I mean, it always depends on like how big the market is,
Sure.
and like how quick things move.
That's really interesting. I'm curious, you know, what are your ambitions in terms of building out this catalog of puzzles? You know, one of the things when I was in there, it was really fun, but it was an extra layer of challenge because I wasn't familiar with the space. Whereas if it was like, okay, assemble, let's say, the Statue of Liberty or the Eiffel Tower, I would have had a pre-existing mental model, which would have probably lent itself to a different experience. Is that something you've thought about?
Sorry, it was a little garbled up. Can you say the
Oh,
last
did
bit
it cut
again?
out? Well, I was just
Okay.
saying, I was thinking basically when I was in there, how, if instead of this castle that I'd never seen before,
Yeah.
if I was assembling, let's say, the Statue of Liberty or the Eiffel Tower, something
Yeah.
that I already had a preconception of,
I get
it
it,
maybe
yeah.
would be a different experience. Have you thought through that?
Yeah, we're playing a lot with that. I mean, we like in the team really came to enjoy puzzling places that we don't know, and like also, I mean, we have a Patreon campaign where we release weekly puzzles. That's been growing steadily as I kind of like the community that we jam with and try things out. And there, like a lot of people actually really enjoy taking away the reference images and not knowing at all what they're puzzling and like discovering the place as they puzzle. So it's like this really interesting form of discovery that is also happening. And like we see some of our more like hardcore users really enjoying that and like pushing that and going for that. While of course I think these kind of like more landmark things like like Castle Neuschwanstein in Germany or like these these typical puzzle motifs, I think they will have their place as well in like, but mainly in attracting people. I actually even like talked with one of like Germany's biggest puzzle producers about this, and like they were telling me interesting facts of like people were just like like they mainly selling to a lot of like middle-aged people that just so want to sit at home and puzzle these very classical like the horses or like these kind of things. So
Sure.
it's gonna be interesting to just figure out what people really enjoy, and that's something that we've been doing a lot with these puzzles that we're releasing weekly. So I think we have like 23 or 24 by now. That we've released, and so it's been very interesting. Like it's been a very wide range, and also like it's really interesting to see in terms of like the amount of like different kinds of textures. Like people hate foliage. Like one of the problems with this puzzle here is the foliage that is really annoying to assemble. Like I mean, this one is just like 10 pieces here that we cut up, but usually it's like 100 pieces, right? But then there's other puzzles, like we have this staircase in San Francisco that is like all bright graffiti, where you have like a lot of really strong cues, and that is like then very different to puzzle, and you have like a much quicker flow, which is really fun for like novice puzzlers, but then like too easy for others. So like it's there's really like a lot of parameters that you can change and play with. It's been super fun to explore that together with our players.
That's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned flow, because that's one of the things that was most exciting to me. So you and I got in there first. So anyone that hasn't played it, all the pieces are kind of laid out in front of you, and you have a reference image below. So at first what I was doing was I'd go pick up one piece, and then I'd go look around for a match. And then as I became more sophisticated and more advanced at using the software, now I'm using both hands, I'm grabbing stuff, I'm rearranging it. So this section's loosely over here and this section over here. And it became one of the most fluid experiences I've had in VR, which I thought was very cool. And it made me think, how cool would it be to be having this fluid experience with a second person in the space with me? Where does multiplayer factor into your plans? Great. You want to talk more about that?
I mean, we just started it this week. Our sprint has been like starting to look into multiplayer. So it's definitely one of the goals that we had. Like it's something that we really care about, because I think like puzzling is this very communal activity. Like it's it's like people get together to talk over like a kind of like like an activity, like, hey, let's go drink a beer. Like we don't go to drink a beer, we go to talk, but like there's this thing that you do together, right? And I think this is one of the things that you can really just like do together and hang out. Like I when I showed my mom the puzzle, she loved it. So I'm literally looking forward to just like puzzle with my mom every now and then, because she lives on the other side of the country. So these kind of things I think is really interesting, and I think that's also like, if you look at like some of the early Facebook games, like that's the niche that they fill, that's the need that they filled. It's like they just created a place for people to hang out together that don't see each other like that often, and give people an excuse to get together and work on that. So I think there's that whole area with a game like that is. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I really enjoy about like making this game is that it's very different to like a lot of the other stuff that's out there, in the sense that it's not like action shooty and zombies and horror, but like we are going for this very meditative flow statey experience that is non-competitive even, right? Like we like are not planning to put in any competitive elements, but like only like this cooperative playing. And like, so it's a very different design approach. And I think like our like first and foremost design pillar of the game is like this meditative, relaxing game feel and calming game feel, and the other thing is just don't do anything that gets in the way of puzzling. And so I'm really happy that you had this experience of just getting into and getting into the flow and not having the feeling that the game gets in your way.
Sure. No, that's awesome. I'll just ask a couple more questions and then open it up. The next question I want to ask is really anything you have to tell us about your approach to building community. We have Eric Tholen here. Hey, Eric, you guys probably have a lot to share with each other because Eric also runs one of the most highly reviewed and highly rated on SideQuest, and both of you guys have great communities that you've built up. Can you talk about how you've built up your community around the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like we like this, the whole project came out of a game jam. We released it really early on in SideQuest, which in hindsight was like perfect. Like, I mean, I'm so happy that we did it that way, because I think that the biggest problem of like developing a game like that, or like developing any kind of consumer facing thing, is like you build it in your basement and you don't show until you think it's done, and then like you never get it done, or like the thing that you build, like no one wants to play it because you just like get so involved in your own project. So bringing it out early on and getting the feedback, and really again and again like talking to the people, it's like, what did you like, what did annoy you, like what can we make better? It's like, it's not about like, I think building taking any advice and like building that into the game one-to-one, but I think it's really, really important to like listen to anything that people enjoy and what they don't enjoy, and then like use that to further develop and guide your design. I mean, that's like, I'm coming from like a UX background as well, and so like this one was something that was really important to me. Then also, I mean, we're getting data. It's one of the things that like when you start our app, like it says to you in the beginning, it's like, yo, we're giving you this for free because like this is really early on, and we're trying to find out if we should build this or not and how we should build it. So we're gonna gather some anonymized data, and that's been super valuable to see like what kind of puzzle people enjoy, like where did they get stuck, what does not work, and then use that to tune things and find it better.
Cool.
And so I think that's also going to be something that's super important down the line. But then in the end, it's just like,
look how realistic that looks.
getting a Discord on, which was something that I was not familiar on, that my teammates really pushed, which was super great. And then at some point we just said like, hey, yo, people really like keep asking us for more content and more content. So we can't like give them like the content at the level that we want, but we were already making like a lot of test puzzles internally for us to figure out, okay, what makes a fun puzzle, and so that we don't always like try the same one. And we were like, okay, I mean, these are not on quite the level that what we expect to deliver in a final game, but maybe they're good enough to share with people. And so we started this whole idea of the Patreon, and building the community from there. And also that's been like, it's been amazing, like the amount of feedback that we've been getting. Like we have like a alpha user group that like is just really involved and giving us so much awesome feedback. So it's been super fun, and it's been like, it really energizes you to work with people and get that kind of feedback. I mean, also sometimes you get feedback and you kind of like there's like a design that you've worked on and that you really like and you think it's good. Like we had one update where we released a new interaction system and we thought it was really, really good, and then people played it and no one like they really hated it, and so we were like, okay, this is maybe not the way to go, and so we rolled it all back, and like that was super valuable, right? So you have to go and iterate and iterate and iterate, and if you have the luck to have a community that goes with you, like that's amazing. And I think what we are really trying to do there is to give back something to the community, which is like the weekly puzzle, right? So they get like a lot of new content that they can play around with and that they really enjoy, and so it's like a win-win for both sides. They help us make a better game, and they get puzzles. So it's just been super fun. So I really appreciate everybody that's been with us on that journey.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Awesome. And I'll just ask you one more question, and that is, once things get to the point where you want them to be, what's your plans for a business model and sales and revenue and those kind of things?
So, I mean, we've been talking about that a lot. Like, we actually really enjoy the kind of model that we have now. We would love to continue that, which is kind of this subscription model, right? That we have. So people are in the Patreon, they pay like a monthly fee, and then they get access not only to the puzzle every week, but they get access to the entire library. That we've built up so far. We're probably gonna next week release like a big update. Like so far, you had to like download a new APK for every puzzle. So we've built a whole thing that now you can load all the puzzles in your app and like have it all in one menu. So that's gonna make things a lot better. We've been working on it for a long time now, and finally are ready to put it out. So really looking forward to that. And the coolest thing, actually, we worked with Shane from SideQuest and Ola, and they have this amazing feature where you can like download stuff directly through SideQuest in the Patreon. So there's like a little Patreon thing, and you can just like download it, and it installs it directly. They've been super helpful with that. So, I mean, just again, like if you're working on something, bring it on SideQuest. Like it's such a great community. Like I'm super happy that they've been doing this. I think I could not have imagined like building puzzling places, not having SideQuest and not having this access to like an early crowd. But yeah, I mean, we do want to take it to the Oculus Store. We failed our first review. There's actually this funny story that, you know, they ask you to submit a draft or like a pitch, which is only PowerPoints. And we're like, oh, we already have like a kind of okay build and we're just going to submit with it, which apparently all but made it worse. So because then they only see like something that is half done, and that's a bad impression. So apparently what I've heard is sometimes it's easier if you only send in the pitch deck and don't like, if you send in a build, like it has to be a really good build. So for all of you who are maybe working on something, that's something to consider. But I'm pretty confident that next round we'll get through. We were able to get some feedback, and so it's mainly just like more content. For them, it's all about reducing risk, right? Like they have to make sure that you deliver something that is good. Like that's the way they thought up the store. So I'm confident we'll get through. Like they don't really like subscription models, so probably in the beginning we're just gonna launch with a like flat fee, like just a normal app sale, and then work with DLCs, and then down the road we might continue to explore if there's a chance to continue the side quest, if that's something that Facebook does not want us to do. So we'll have to figure these things out. But it's pretty much dictated by what Facebook will let us do with the store. So we'll see.
That's awesome. And by the way, that comment about, you know, they're more likely to accept a nice pitch versus, you know, a real build. This is the third or fourth week in a row that I've heard, you know, a developer that's in your sort of position say something like that. So I think it's a safe assumption at this point. Well, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up a little bit. Eric, you want to ask a couple questions maybe?
I have a question about how many polygons are you rendering per puzzle, or like how many polygons is a puzzle made of?
We go for like I mean you can push the quest 1 up to like 500,000 with our meshes, but usually we go for like 200 or like 150k. I mean it depends a little bit on the mesh and like how much you can reduce it, but like 150 200 K is usually a good thing, because I mean, you know, it's like you can squeeze it up all the way, but then you have no headroom left for any kind of effects or any other things, or like also like you squeeze the battery drive pretty quickly. So we try to find like a good compromise there. But the main problems actually has not been polygons. It's mainly been fill rate. Our graphics engineer could like talk more to you about that, but like it's mainly like really about avoiding transparency, because like if you have like big parts of transparency that are overlaid in your scene, you will just like have to render everything multiple times, and then it really gets bad. So that's been one of the, like we had like the floor grid is, for example, has like this transparency that's been really bad for us. So we're trying to get around that. With the photogrammetry part, we're pretty solid. It's the nice thing about unlit meshes. Like you can have like a lot of polys and like nice textures. As long as you don't like kill the VRAM. And I mean with Quest 2 it's even better. Like it's super nice. And it's super nice that like our assets in a way like are out of the box kind of like Quest optimized. because we can just like right away take the high resolution and have it like look nicer. Cool.
What
Yeah.
software
Any
do
other
you use
questions?
for?
For the
sorry.
no, go ahead. For the photogrammetry?
Yeah, just curious.
So the reconstruction is done in reality capture, which is the best one around.
Okay.
And then we've have kind of like like our own software stack for like the optimization. Where we also use some third-party stuff in there, but like the way we cut it up and that's all our own stuff. So that like is not for the game. Like that's stuff that we've built over the like since 2016, since we've been working on that.
So
we kind of like made this puzzle maker without knowing that we were making a puzzle maker. Sorry?
Do you cut it up by hand, or do you cut it
No.
up?
This is completely automated. This is actually like a kind of Voronoi segmentation. So our backend engineers right now working on modifying that, so it will have like these little like you see back there with the little cutouts. Which is a surprisingly tricky problem to solve, to make it work in every sense and like not have any edge cases left. Cool. Any other questions? Feel free to shoot.
Yeah. I guess like at the poly budgets that you're talking about, it seems like you're not actually running into any sort of like perceivable errors in your meshes. But have you, like when you're thinking about extending the puzzle or extending the experience beyond where it's at right now, do you ever feel like you're going to have to make trade-offs where the illusion of the unlit sort of photogrammetry breaks, or are you mostly trying to avoid that?
The big problem with these kind of like unlit meshes is that like it feels static and sterile because you don't have these kind of like lighting effects. You can cheat your way around it a little bit, but if you want to have it to look good, that's a whole different thing. And then like once you start lighting these meshes in real time, you suddenly see that the geometry is not as perfect as it looks. Like it's kind of like bumpy and not optimized, and like then you get these weird shadows. So that's kind of like one of the drawbacks of this kind of photogrammetry. So it's all cool while you stay in that. And lucky for us is that for puzzling places this works. So one thing that we've done, we've released a Halloween version of the Dracula's Castle, which we did some relighting in Blender. So we kind of like did some offline relighting to make it look more spooky. That worked surprisingly well. So we're kind of exploring that venue. And then for like, I mean, down the road stuff that we're looking at right now is also just kind of like neural rendering techniques that are in their infancy and not something for mobile, but something for PC. But we're pretty excited about that. I think that's where like a lot of the future lies for these kind of scenes. But that's basically like a completely different rendering paradigm, and so don't expect that tomorrow on Quest.
Yeah, that's super interesting though. Thanks.
How long does like a typical workflow take, like from finding a cool mesh or like doing the photography and then having it as a final puzzle?
I mean, from if we have a mesh, like if we download a mesh from Sketchfab, I think we can have it like imported and ready to go in at the moment like half a day.
Cool.
But then like maybe like adding like the reference images, there's a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. We're trying to like build tools to make that better. We've already made it like a lot quicker and faster. If you do the photogrammetry, usually you're like depends on what you scan, like a few hours inside, then you take the stuff home and run it through. And if it's a good scan and you don't have to do anything by hand, you can turn it around in like a day or two. If you run into problems, then it can like turn from 1 day, 1 or 2 days into like 2 weeks easy. So that's the problem. Like that's this thing. Like it's all good until something goes wrong, and then like like if you have to fix things up in post, then it gets really ugly. Sometimes it's easier than to just like ditch the scan and like do another one. Yeah.
Hi, I'm majoring in computer science at University of Washington. I've usually made like just web apps. So as someone who wants to get into virtual reality with prior experience to programming, what resource or do you recommend?
I mean, it's there's a lot. If you're familiar with the web stack, I mean, there's extremely cool web VR stuff going on that I always wished had the time to do more. Like I'm coming more from like the Unity Unreal side, so that's the kind of like the tools that I'm used to. But I mean, check out all the A-frame stuff. Like it's pretty impressive. Like I know some people that are doing super great work of that, and I think it's becoming more and more important with the problems around Facebook that we see them locking down the app stores and all that kind of stuff. So WebVR is I think one of the big future possibilities that we have there to avoid these problems. We actually had this dude who was like toying around with WebVR, making a kind of tiny puzzle clone of that, and he got it to run with much simpler models. But like, there's really cool stuff you can do, and if that's your tech stack, like definitely check that out. Other than that, I mean, just getting started with the engines, just start building stuff, and like going through there's tons of documentation out there, tons of tutorials out there. But I think it's really about like with VR, like you